It was 3:13 a.m. when the doorbell suddenly rang. But when I opened the door, no one was there. Every night, at exactly 3:13 a.m., the chime echoed through the hallway like a cry from inside the walls. It didn't matter whether the house was bolted shut, the cameras were on, or if someone was awake inside. The doorbell would ring once, never more, never less, always precisely at the same hour, to the second. At first, I assumed it was a prank. Maybe some bored teenager exploiting smart home systems for a laugh. But when I reviewed the footage from the first night, the porch was completely empty, eerily still and undisturbed. No shadow crossed the motion zone. No breeze moved the bushes, not even an insect crawled across the lens. I live in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio, a peaceful neighborhood where the strangest crime is stolen Amazon packages. Still, I chalked it up to a glitch, updated the firmware, and restarted the system like a responsible homeowner. I even joked about it in a group chat. My ghost prefers punctuality, and forgot it by the morning. The second night, I sat up in bed, staring at the phone screen, watching the live feed in silence. At 3:13 a.m., right on cue, the doorbell chimed, and this time, the camera showed a man standing outside. He stood 6 feet from the door, just outside the motion trigger range, motionless, partially swallowed by darkness. He wore a gray trench coat and old-fashioned dress shoes, the kind you'd see in photos from the 1940s. His head hung forward slightly, as if in mourning or deep contemplation, and his hands were deep in his coat pockets. Strangely, the camera refused to focus on his face. It blurred like static, no matter how much I zoomed in. He remained there for exactly 2 minutes, unmoving, until he turned around and backed into the darkness without a word. No alerts, no notification. I only saw him because I was already watching the feed live, dreading the hour. When I replayed the footage, the figure was gone, only an empty porch, as if the camera had erased him afterward. The third night, the doorbell didn't ring, but I woke up at 3:13 a.m. as if summoned. I checked the app out of habit, and instead of video, there was only a single message on the screen. White font, black background, no timestamp, just 4 words, centered perfectly: "You're awake. Good." The clip was only 4 seconds long. Then it vanished. I checked the app. No history, no backup. Even cloud storage showed no record of the file. It was as if it had never existed. I began to question my sanity. Had I dreamed it? Was this the beginning of a psychological breakdown? To be safe, I bought a new doorbell camera, different brand, better encryption, and even installed a secondary indoor cam. I reset my router, changed every password, enabled 2-factor authentication, and even isolated the cameras on a separate network. Then I waited, with dread growing in my chest like a second heartbeat. A week passed. Nothing happened. No chimes, no footage, no cryptic messages. I started to breathe again. Then one morning, I checked the hallway footage just to make sure everything was still working. At exactly 3:13 a.m., a shadow passed in front of the frosted glass on the front door. Not outside the house. Inside, between the door and the hallway camera, which I had mounted high on the wall. The silhouette was too tall and narrow to be mine, and it moved without sound, like mist sliding over wood. There was no record of the door opening, no footsteps, no alerts, just a figure drifting past, barely touching the ground. I paused the footage and zoomed in on the moment the shape crossed the lens. Where a face should have been, there was only a flickering blur, like static trying to erase something unspeakable. Each time I played the clip, the distortion worsened, until the entire app refused to open past midnight footage. Then came the email. No sender, no subject, only a body text. Stop looking. Timestamped exactly 3:13 a.m. My internet history showed no activity during that hour. I showed it to the police. They dismissed it as a prank or malware, until one officer grew unusually quiet. He told me I wasn't alone. 3 other homes had reported the same figure, same time, same footage vanishing. Each family had recently installed new cameras from different brands. All high-end, all inexplicably compromised. I asked what happened to them. The officer looked tired and whispered, 2 moved away. 1 disappeared completely. I asked if he believed me. He didn't answer, just muttered, "It knows when you see it," and walked away. Keep watching. The next nightmare is closer than you think. That night, I unplugged everything. All cameras, the Wi-Fi, even the power strip, but the clock still ticked. The fourth night after that conversation, I decided to stay awake and confront whatever it was. I barricaded the front door, turned on every light, and sat facing the hallway with a bat in my lap. I watched both camera feeds in silence. At 3:13 a.m., the indoor camera's light flickered and then went black. No power loss, no disconnect, just off, like the lens had blinked, or something had blinked for it. Then came the knock, one soft tap, like a fingernail brushing old wood, muffled, deliberate, wrong. I held my breath. The air turned heavy, metallic, like breathing inside a sealed tin can under pressure. I blinked, once. And then he was inside. Not entering, not moving through a doorway. Just suddenly there, at the end of the hallway, still in the coat. His hands were in his pockets. Head bowed. He hadn't moved an inch, yet he hadn't been there before. I wanted to move, to run, to scream, but I couldn't. Not from fear, from paralysis. My body simply refused to obey me, as if his presence rewired something deep inside my nervous system. He raised his head slowly, and though every bulb in the house was lit, his face remained hidden in darkness. Then, in a breathless whisper, he spoke my name. Not reading it, remembering it. That was the last thing I remember. I woke up on the floor at sunrise, shaking. The front door was still locked. Every light still on. The footage from the night was gone without a trace. But on the inside of the door, carved deep into the wood, were the numbers. 313. I tried sanding them down, painting over them, replacing the panel, but every night, they reappear, deeper than before. I stopped staying in the house. I sleep in my car now, or in the 24-hour diner down the street. But last night, my phone rang. No number, just static and then a calm, cold voice. "You moved the camera." I had, weeks ago, repositioned it to face outward, toward the street, not toward the house. How did he know? How does he always know? How long has he been watching from the other side? I've given up trying to understand. This isn't about logic, it's about ritual, about being seen. And I think, maybe that's all it ever wanted, to be witnessed. To be acknowledged, to be real again. Tonight, I'm leaving forever. I took nothing with me but a flashlight, wallet, and the clothes on my back. I thought if I got far enough from that cursed address, the pattern would break. The timing would fail. But as I sit in my car on the side of the highway, phone in my hand, the screen lights up. Front door camera activated. 3:13 a.m. I look up, through the windshield, and there he is, standing just beyond the guardrail, smiling beneath the streetlight. He doesn't wave, doesn't move, just watches, as if waiting for me to do what I always do. Open the app, look. And in the end, I do. The truth is, it doesn't matter where you go, how far you run, or whether the door is even real. Because once you see him, truly see him, he becomes part of the rules that govern your life, your nights, your endings. You become part of the ritual, the echo, the script he's replayed for generations in silence. And no matter how far you flee, he follows, not like a man, but like a time, a rule, a clock ticking down. So if your doorbell rings at exactly 3:13 a.m., don't check the camera. Don't answer the door. And above all, never, ever look directly into the lens while it records. Because the moment you look for him, he sees you too. And he never forgets the eyes that dared to look. He remembers. And he always comes back for them. Subscribe and stay with us. The horror has just begun.